The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was older than human civilization. Its walls were made of crystal that sang when light passed through them. 1,000 species had walked these floors, empires had risen and fallen, while this chamber stood unchanged. And today, for the first time in 10,000 years, a new species had been allowed inside. Captain June Park stood at the entrance and tried not to show his fear. He was a soldier, not a diplomat. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth and commanded ships that had crossed the solar system, but nothing had prepared him for this. The chamber was filled with beings he could not have imagined in his strangest dreams. Some floated in tanks of liquid, others had bodies made of pure light, a few looked almost human. But their eyes held the wisdom of species that had traveled between stars when humans still lived in caves. "Stay calm," whispered Dr. Hannah Lee beside him. She was Earth's best scientist. A woman who had spent her life studying alien biology. From the fragments and signals humanity had collected over centuries. "They want us to feel small. Do not give them that satisfaction." June nodded. He looked at the man walking ahead of them both. Ambassador Tay Kang moved with quiet confidence, his simple black suit standing out against the flowing robes and glowing armor of the alien delegates. Tay was 60 years old, with gray hair and kind eyes that hid a sharp mind. He had been chosen to speak for 8 billion humans. The weight of that responsibility would have crushed most people, but Tay simply smiled and walked forward. The center of the chamber held a raised platform where the leaders of the council sat. The Valori were there, tall and thin, with silver skin and eyes like deep pools of water. They were the oldest species in the known galaxy. Their empire had existed for 1,000,000 years. Next to them sat the Dron, massive creatures covered in natural armor, their forearms folded across their chests. They were warriors, conquerors, and they looked at the humans the way a lion might look at mice. Elder Norath of the Valori raised one long hand. The chamber fell silent. "Humans of Earth," his voice echoed through the hall, translated instantly by technology beyond human understanding. "You have asked to join our council. You have traveled far to stand before us. Speak your purpose." Tay Kang stepped onto the speaker's circle. A beam of light surrounded him, carrying his voice to every corner of the vast room. "Thank you, Elder Norath," Tay said. His voice was calm and steady. "We come with respect for this council and all its members. Humanity is young. We know this. We have only traveled among the stars for 200 years, but we believe we have something to offer." A sound rippled through the chamber. It took June a moment to realize it was laughter. One of the Dran generals leaned forward. His name was Vorak, and he commanded a fleet of 10,000 warships. "What could you possibly offer?" he growled. "Your species still kills each other over land and resources. You poison your own world. You are children playing with fire, perhaps." Tay replied without anger. "But children sometimes see things that adults miss." The laughter stopped. Elder Norath's eyes narrowed with interest. Tay reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. He placed it on the floor, and suddenly the air above it filled with images. Stars, planets, and then something else. A region of space that was completely black. Not the darkness of empty space, but something deeper. Something wrong. "This is the void sector," Tay said. "Our long-range sensors detected unusual readings from this region 6 months ago. Energy patterns that do not match any known phenomenon. Patterns that are growing stronger." The chamber was silent now. June noticed that several of the alien delegates had gone very still. "We found references to this region in the oldest records we could access," Tay continued. "Records that speak of something called the Hollow, an ancient force that existed before the first civilizations rose. A force that was imprisoned, not destroyed, because it could not be destroyed." "Enough." Elder Norath's voice was cold. "The Hollow is a myth, a story told to frighten young species. You insult this council by speaking of children's tales. With respect, Elder, our readings are not myths. Something is waking in the void sector. Something that has been sleeping for a very long time." General Vorak slammed his fist against his seat. "This is a waste of time. The humans come here with ghost stories because they have nothing else to offer. They are weak. Their world is weak. I say we deny their request and send them back to their little planet." Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. June felt his hands tighten into fists. Beside him, Hana placed a gentle hand on his arm. Taekang did not move. He did not raise his voice. He simply looked at the assembled leaders of the galaxy and spoke. "We came here to warn you. We came here because we believed that cooperation was better than isolation. We see now that we were wrong about one thing." He paused. "We thought you would listen." He picked up his device and the images disappeared. "Humanity will prepare for what is coming. We will do so alone if we must. But remember this moment, Elder Noreth. Remember this day when a young species came to you with truth. And you chose to laugh." He turned and walked back toward June and Hana. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Some delegates demanded the humans be punished for their disrespect. Others simply laughed again. As they walked out of the great hall, Hana leaned close to June. "They will remember this day," she said quietly. "When the darkness comes, and it will come, they will remember that we tried to save them." June looked back at the chamber one last time. He saw the proud faces of species who had ruled the stars for longer than humans had existed. He saw their contempt, their certainty that they knew everything worth knowing. "Yes," he said, "they will remember." The doors closed behind them. Outside, their small ship waited to take them back to Earth, back to a world that would now have to prepare for war against an enemy the galaxy refused to believe existed. Taekang stopped at the bottom of the stairs. He looked up at the alien sky, filled with 3 suns and countless moons. "Send word to Earth," he said. "Tell them to begin Project Blackout. Tell them we are on our own." June nodded and walked toward the ship. Behind him, the Galactic Council continued their meeting, discussing trade routes and territorial disputes. They had already forgotten about the humans and their warning. They would not forget for long. 6 months passed after the day at the Galactic Council. The galaxy continued as it always had. Ships moved between stars. Trade flowed through 1,000 ports. The great empires of the Valori and the Dran grew richer and more powerful. No one spoke of the humans anymore. They were a joke, a brief entertainment, quickly forgotten. But on Earth, everything had changed. Deep beneath the mountains of what was once called Korea, General Dae-yoon stood in a command center that officially did not exist. Screens covered every wall, showing images of shipyards, weapons factories, and training facilities spread across the planet and the solar system. Humanity was building an army in secret, and Dae-yoon was the man in charge of it. He was 62 years old, with a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He had fought in the last great war on Earth, the one that had finally united humanity under one government. He had seen cities burn and millions die. He had sworn that he would never let his people face such destruction again. Now, he feared something far worse was coming. "Report," he said to the young officer beside him. Lieutenant Yuna Choi pulled up a display. She was 30 years old, brilliant, and the best tactical mind Earth had produced in a generation. "Fleet construction is ahead of schedule, sir. We have 47 capital ships ready, with another 100 in various stages of completion. The orbital defense platforms around Earth and Mars are fully operational." Day nodded. "And the special project?" Yuna hesitated. "Engineer Kim says she needs more time. She always says that. Take me to her." They walked through corridors carved into the mountain itself. Armed guards stood at every checkpoint. The people working here had not seen sunlight in months. They had given up their normal lives for this mission. They were heroes, even if the world would never know their names. The special project was housed in a chamber at the deepest level of the facility. When Day and Yuna entered, they found a small woman surrounded by holographic equations that floated in the air around her like a cloud of glowing insects. Soo Kim was only 28 years old, but she was already considered the greatest physicist humanity had ever produced. She had been recruited straight out of university when she published a paper that explained how to fold space itself. The Galactic Council believed such technology was impossible. They were wrong. "General," Sue said without looking up, "I told you I need more time." "The galaxy is not going to give us more time," Day replied. "What is the status of the collapse engine?" Sue finally turned to face him. Her eyes were tired but determined. "The theory is sound. I have run 10,000 simulations, But building something that can actually fold space without tearing itself apart is very different from writing equations on a screen. Can it be done? Yes. She paused. Probably. Maybe. Day almost smiled. I have fought wars with worse odds. Continue your work. You will have whatever resources you need. He turned to leave, but Sue called out to him. General, can I ask you something? Yes. Do you really believe what Ambassador Kang said about the Hollow? Day was silent for a moment. Then he spoke. When I was a young soldier, I learned that the universe does not care about what we believe. It only cares about what is true. The readings do not lie. Something is out there, and I would rather prepare for a threat that never comes than be caught unprepared when it does. Sue nodded slowly. Then I will make sure the engine works. Later that day, Day received a message from Captain June Park. June was stationed at the edge of the solar system, commanding a small fleet of scout ships. His voice was calm, but Day could hear the tension beneath the words. General, we have lost contact with Colony 7 in the Outer Rim. All communications stopped 12 hours ago. I have sent a probe, but it will take 3 days to reach them. Could it be equipment failure? Possible. But Colony 7 has backup systems, multiple redundancies. For everything to fail at once would require something catastrophic. Day felt cold settle in his chest. Keep me informed. 3 days later, the probe reached Colony 7. It sent back 1 minute of footage before it too went silent. The images showed the colony in ruins, not destroyed by weapons or natural disaster. Consumed. The buildings, the ships, the ground itself, had been eaten away, leaving only empty space where a thriving settlement had once stood, and at the edge of the image, barely visible, was something that defied description. A darkness that seemed to swallow light itself. A presence that made the viewer feel small and meaningless. The Hollow had awakened. Day immediately contacted Ambassador Tae Kang. It has begun, he said. What do we do? 1. We continue our preparations, Tae replied, and we wait for the galaxy to ask for help. What if they don't ask? They will. Pride is a powerful thing, General, but fear is stronger. 2 weeks later, the Dran Collective sent their greatest fleet to investigate the disturbances in the Outer Rim. 50,000 warships. The largest military force the galaxy had seen in centuries. They were gone within a day. Not defeated, not damaged, simply gone. As if they had never existed. The galaxy finally began to understand. Elder Norath of the Valori sent a private message to Earth. His voice was different now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like fear. We need to speak. The Council requests a meeting with humanity's representatives. We are prepared to listen. Day read the message and then looked at Yuna. Draft a response. Tell them Ambassador Kang will attend the meeting. What should he say to them? Day thought about the council chamber, about the laughter and the contempt. He thought about the colonies that had been swallowed by darkness, while the galaxy ignored the warnings. Tell them the truth. Tell them we warned them. Tell them they did not listen. He paused. And tell them to prepare their people. Because if they want our help, they are going to fight beside us. We will not save those who refuse to save themselves. Yuna nodded and began to write. Outside, the stars continued to shine. Unaware that something was moving through the darkness between them. Something hungry. Something ancient. And humanity, the species the galaxy had called primitive and weak, was the only one ready to face it. The Galactic Council chamber was different now. When Ambassador Tae Kang entered this time, there was no laughter, no contempt. The delegates who had mocked humanity 6 months ago now looked at him with something between respect and desperation. Elder Norath stood at the center of the room. His silver skin seemed paler than before. His ancient eyes held shadows that had not been there during their last meeting. Ambassador Kang, he said, thank you for coming. Tae nodded but did not speak. He waited. The chamber was silent. Species that had ruled the stars for millions of years sat quietly, waiting for a human to tell them what to do. It was a moment that would have been unthinkable just months ago. Finally, Elder Norath spoke again. We were wrong. The Hollow is real. We have lost 17 colonies, 3 fleet groups, and 2 research stations. Nothing we do seems to affect it. Our weapons pass through it. Our shields mean nothing." He paused, and his voice dropped. "We do not know how to fight it." "No," Tay said simply. "You do not." General Vorak of the Dran rose from his seat. His armor was damaged, his face scarred. He was one of the few survivors of the fleet that had been sent to investigate. "Then tell us, human. If you know so much, tell us how to stop this thing. First, tell me what happened to your fleet." Vorak's 4 hands clenched into fists. "We arrived at the colony. We found nothing but empty space. Then the darkness came. Our weapons fired, but the energy simply disappeared into it. Our shields did not slow it down. It moved through our ships like they were not there. It did not destroy them. It consumed them. The metal, the energy, the crew, everything." "How did you escape?" "I crashed my ship into one of our own destroyers. The explosion pushed me far enough away that I could jump to hyperspace." He paused. "I am not proud of what I did, but I survived." Tay nodded slowly. "You crashed your ship. Physical impact. That pushed you away." "Yes. But what difference does it make? We cannot defeat this thing by crashing ships." "Actually," Tay said, "that is exactly how we will defeat it." He pulled out his device and projected images into the air. They showed the recordings from the destroyed colonies, analyzed and enhanced by Earth's scientists. "Dr. Shin, please explain." A new figure stepped forward. Dr. Narration was a young woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She had spent the last 2 months studying every piece of data about the Hollow. "The Hollow is not a creature in the normal sense," she began. "It is more like a force of nature. It exists in the space between dimensions, and it feeds on energy. All energy. Heat, light, radiation, the power that flows through your ships. This is why your weapons do not work. They are energy-based. When you fire at the Hollow, you are feeding it." The chamber stirred with unease. "But physical matter is different," Nari continued. "Solid objects, kinetic force, nuclear explosions. These are not just energy. They are matter and force combined. The Hollow can consume energy, but it cannot simply absorb mass. When General Vorak crashed his ship, he used kinetic impact. The Hollow was pushed back. Even if only for a moment." Elder Norath leaned forward. "You are saying that physical weapons can hurt this thing?" "Yes, bullets, missiles, nuclear warheads. The weapons your species abandoned thousands of years ago as primitive and inefficient." Nari smiled slightly. "The weapons humanity never stopped using." Silence fell over the chamber. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had spent millions of years developing energy-based technology. They had left behind physical weapons because they seemed crude and limited, and now they were learning that their progress had made them helpless against the very thing they needed to fight. "There is more," Nari said. "The Hollow was not always free. According to the oldest records I could find, it was imprisoned long ago by a species that no longer exists. They did not destroy it because it cannot be truly destroyed. But they found a way to contain it." "How?" "They collapsed space around it. Created a prison made of folded dimensions. The Hollow could not escape because there was nowhere to escape to." She paused. "We believe we can do the same thing." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the delegates. "Collapse space? That is impossible. No technology can do such a thing." Tay Kang stepped forward. "We have developed a device called the Collapse Engine. It is experimental, and it has never been tested at full scale. But our scientists believe it can fold space itself. If we can get it close enough to the Hollow's core, we can trap it the same way it was trapped before." "Why should we believe you?" Vorak demanded. "You are a Tier 7 civilization. You have only been traveling among the stars for 2 centuries. How could you develop technology that our greatest minds could not even imagine?" Tay looked at him calmly. "Because we never stopped asking questions. We never assumed we knew everything, and we never stopped preparing for the day when our survival would depend on the weapons you called barbaric." Admiral Uncio, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. She was the commander of Earth's hidden fleet, the Black Armada. Her presence had not been announced, and several delegates looked at her with surprise. "The human fleet is ready to engage the Hollow," she said. "We have ships equipped with kinetic weapons, nuclear warheads, and experimental technology that will make your energy cannons look like children's toys. But we will not fight alone." "What do you mean?" Elder North asked. "Every species in this room will contribute to this battle. Not because we need your weapons. We don't. We need your numbers. The Hollow is vast, and it is spreading. We will need to hit it from multiple directions at once, while a strike team delivers the collapse engine to its core. You are asking us to send our people into a fight we cannot win. I am asking you to stand beside the species you called primitive. I am asking you to fight for your own survival." Unso's voice was hard. "If you refuse, we will fight anyway, but the Hollow will come for your worlds eventually, and when it does, there will be no one left to save you." The chamber fell silent. Taekang watched as the delegates looked at each other. He saw fear, doubt, and pride warring on their alien faces. But beneath all of that, he saw something else. Hope. Elder Noreth finally spoke. "The Valori Empire will stand with humanity, one by one." The other delegations agreed. The Dran, the smaller species, even those who had laughed the loudest at their first meeting. When it was done, Taekang addressed them all. "We fight not as masters and servants, but as equals. The galaxy ignored our warning, but we will not hold that against you. What matters now is what we do together." He looked at each of them in turn. "Prepare your fleets. The battle for survival begins in 3 days." The darkness was endless. Captain June Park stood on the bridge of the Soul's Fury, Earth's most powerful warship, and stared at the view screen. The Hollow filled the entire display. It was not just black, it was an absence of everything. Light, heat, hope. Looking at it made something deep in his chest feel cold. "All ships report ready," Lieutenant Yuna Choi said beside him. Her voice was steady, but he could see her hands gripping the console a little too tightly. "How many do we have?" 4,000 human vessels, another 12,000 from the allied species, 16,000 ships. The largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Against an enemy that had swallowed armies without slowing down, June opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Captain Park. In a few minutes, we will begin the attack. Many of us will not survive this day. I will not lie to you about that, but I will tell you this. Every species in this galaxy told us we were too young, too primitive, too weak to matter. Today, we prove them wrong." He paused, looking at the darkness ahead. "We are humanity. We were born on a world that tried to kill us with ice, fire, disease, and disaster. We survived. We killed each other in wars that lasted generations. We survived. We poisoned our own planet and brought it back from the edge of death. We survived. And now, we face something older and more terrible than anything we have ever known." His voice grew stronger. "We will survive this too. Because that is what we do. We endure. We adapt. We fight. And we never, ever give up." The channel filled with voices. Human ships calling out their readiness. Dran warriors roaring their war cries. Even the ancient Valori, who had not fought a battle in 10,000 years, added their voices to the chorus. June looked at Yuna. "Signal the fleet. Begin the attack." The first wave hit the Hollow like a storm of fire. Nuclear missiles, launched from 1,000 ships, exploded against the darkness. Each explosion was a small sun, and for a moment the void itself seemed to burn, but the Hollow absorbed it all. The light disappeared into its mass. The radiation fed its hunger. "As expected," Yuna said. "The energy is being consumed, but the kinetic force from the explosions is pushing it back. The plan is working." June nodded. Second wave. Rail guns. Across the fleet, massive weapons came to life. These were not energy beams or plasma cannons. They were simple machines that threw metal at incredible speeds. Projectiles the size of buildings flew through space and slammed into the Hollow. This time, the darkness reacted. It shuddered. It pulled back. "It felt that," Yuna said, her voice rising with excitement. "The kinetic impact is affecting it. Keep firing." Push it back. We need to create an opening for Ghost Squadron. Pilot Hyun Baek was already leading his team into the heart of the battle. Ghost Squadron was made up of the best pilots humanity had ever produced. They flew small, fast ships armed with a very special cargo. Ghost Leader to Fleet Command. Hyun's voice crackled over the radio. We are approaching the target zone. Enemy is thick. Very thick. Can you get through? We're going to find out. The small ships dove into the darkness. All around them, the hollow reached out with tendrils of void, trying to catch them. Hyun flew like a man possessed, spinning and diving through spaces that should have been impossible. Ghost 2 is down, someone reported. Ghost 5 is down. Hyun did not slow down. He could not afford to think about the pilots he was losing. He could only think about the mission. In the cargo hold of his ship was a beacon, a device that would transmit a signal to the collapse engine, telling it exactly where to focus its power. Without that beacon, the engine would not work. Without the engine, the hollow could not be stopped. I see the core, Hyun said. It's right in front of me. 50 kilometers, 40, 30. The darkness closed around him. His ship's hull began to crack under the pressure. Warning lights flashed across his controls. 20 kilometers. 10. Hyun, your ship is breaking apart. Yuna's voice was urgent. You need to pull back. No time. His voice was calm, almost peaceful. Tell my family I love them. He pressed the release. The beacon flew from his ship and embedded itself in the core of the hollow. Then the darkness took him. Back on the Soul's Fury, June watched the beacon's signal appear on his screen. He closed his eyes for a moment. His sacrifice will not be wasted. Signal Engineer Kim, activate the collapse engine. Thousands of kilometers away, on a ship that had stayed hidden behind the main fleet. Soo Kim watched her screens with wide eyes. The beacon was active. The target was locked. This is it, she whispered. Everything I have worked for. She pressed the activation button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself began to bend. The collapse engine created a field of folded dimensions around the hollow's core. Space twisted and curved, wrapping around the darkness like a shroud. The hollow screamed. It was not a sound that could be heard with ears. It was a feeling. A wave of rage and fear that swept across the entire fleet. It's fighting back, Sue reported. The field is holding, but I don't know for how long. June made a decision. All ships, focus fire on the core. Everything we have. Nuclear weapons, railguns, missiles. Hit it with everything. The fleet responded. Wave after wave of destruction crashed into the hollow. The darkness writhed and thrashed, but it could not escape the folding space around it. Dr. Hana Lee's voice came over the command channel. She was broadcasting to every ship in the fleet. Every species, every world that was watching. We are humanity. We were forged in fire, in plague, in war. We have killed our own world and brought it back. We do not fear the void, because we have stared into it before, and we did not blink. The hollow screamed again, louder this time, more desperate. Keep firing, June ordered. Do not stop. Do not hesitate. The battle raged for hours. Ships fell by the hundreds. The Dran lost most of their remaining fleet. The Valori's ancient warships were swallowed whole. But they kept fighting. They kept pushing, because humanity had taught them something today. They had taught them that courage was not the absence of fear. It was the choice to fight despite it. Finally, as the last of the nuclear warheads detonated inside the collapsing field, something changed. The hollow stopped fighting. The darkness began to fold in on itself, pulled into the prison of twisted space that Soo Kim had created. It's working, Yuna breathed. The field is closing. June watched as the ancient enemy of all life was slowly pulled out of existence. Not destroyed. That was impossible. But contained, locked away in a cage of folded dimensions where it could never hurt anyone again. The battle was over. June slumped in his chair. He looked at the casualty reports scrolling across his screen. Thousands of ships. Millions of lives. Friends he would never see again. But they had won. This is Captain Park to all ships, he said tiredly. The hollow has been contained. The battle is over. Well done. All of you. Well done. Across the fleet, cheers erupted. Species that had been strangers or enemies just months ago celebrated together. The galaxy had survived, and humanity had led them to victory. June looked at the stars beyond the viewscreen. Somewhere out there, Hyun-Baek and all the others who had died today were at rest. We did it, he said softly. We actually did it. He did not know that he would not live to see the celebration. His wounds from the battle were worse than he had realized. But in that moment, surrounded by his crew and his friends, Captain June Park was at peace. Humanity had proven itself, and the galaxy would never forget. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with silence when Ambassador Tae Kang entered for the second time. But this silence was different from before. It was not the quiet of contempt, it was the quiet of respect. 1 year had passed since the battle against the Hollow. The galaxy was still healing. Entire systems had been lost. Species had been reduced to scattered survivors. The scars of that terrible war would take generations to fade, but life continued. And today, the council had gathered to honor those who had made survival possible. Tae walked slowly through the chamber. He was older now, his hair completely white, his face lined with grief and exhaustion. He had lost friends in the battle. He had held Captain June Park's hand as the brave soldier took his last breath. Hours after the victory was won, he carried the weight of all those losses with him every day. But he also carried something else: pride. Elder Noreth stood at the center of the chamber. The ancient Valori looked different now. Smaller somehow, more humble. The arrogance that had once defined his species was gone, burned away by the fire of war. Ambassador Kang, Noreth said, his voice echoing through the hall. On behalf of the Galactic Council and all the species we represent, I welcome you. Thank you, Elder. We have called this assembly for a single purpose: to recognize what humanity has done for the galaxy, to honor those who gave their lives in the battle against the Hollow, and to ask a question. Tae waited. What do you want from us? The question hung in the air. Around the chamber, delegates from 1,000 worlds watched and waited. They expected demands: territory, resources, power. That was how the galaxy worked. You fought. You won. You took your prize. But Tae simply smiled sadly. We want nothing. A murmur of surprise rippled through the chamber. Let me tell you a story, Tae said. When I was a young man, my grandfather told me about the old days on Earth. The days before humanity united. He told me about wars that killed millions, about hatred that divided us by the color of our skin, the place of our birth, the names of our gods. He told me about the darkness in human hearts. He paused, but he also told me about something else. He told me about the people who stood against that darkness, the ones who helped strangers, the ones who sacrificed themselves for others, the ones who believed that all life had value, even when the world around them said otherwise. Tae looked at Elder Noreth. We did not fight the Hollow for power. We did not fight it for revenge against those who mocked us. We fought it because it was the right thing to do, because every life in this galaxy, whether human or Valori or Dran, deserves a chance to exist. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small object. It was a badge, worn and scorched by battle. The badge of Captain June Park. I hold this because the man who wore it cannot be here today. He gave his life in the final battle. So did thousands of other humans. So did millions of beings from every species represented in this room. Tae's voice trembled slightly. They did not die for conquest. They died for each other. And I will not dishonor their memory by turning their sacrifice into a business transaction. Elder Noreth bowed his head. You humble us, Ambassador. That is not my intention. My intention is to ask something of you. Not territory or resources or power. Something far more valuable. Name it. Tae looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from worlds he had never seen. Remember this. Remember what happened when the galaxy faced extinction. Remember that a species you called primitive led the fight to save you. And the next time a young civilization comes to this chamber, asking to be heard, listen to them. Do not laugh at their warnings. Do not dismiss their ideas because they are different from your own. He placed June's badge on the central podium. Let this be the last time any species is underestimated simply because they are young, or small, or different. Because you never know which of them might be the one to save you all. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, Elder Norath began to applaud. Others joined him. Soon, the entire council was standing, honoring the human ambassador with a gesture that had not been seen in 10,000 years. Tay nodded once, then turned and walked out of the chamber. He did not look back. Outside, General Dae-Yun was waiting for him. The old soldier looked tired but at peace. How did it go? They offered us anything we wanted, and you said no. I said no. Day nodded slowly. June would have been proud of you. I hope so. They walked together toward the human ships waiting to take them home. Behind them, the Galactic Council was already beginning to change. New rules were being proposed. New alliances were being formed. The galaxy that had once laughed at humanity was now looking to them for guidance. 1 year later, a monument was unveiled on a moon of the Valori homeworld. It showed a human soldier in battered armor, holding a cracked helmet, staring up at the stars. The statue was made from metal salvaged from ships that had fought in the final battle, both human and alien. The inscription at its base read, "They were called primitive. They called themselves human. On Earth, life returned to something like normal. The scars of war were still visible. Memorials stood in every city, honoring the dead. But children played in parks. Families gathered for meals, and people looked up at the night sky with wonder instead of fear." Lieutenant Yuna Choi, now promoted to captain, took command of the horizon. Her first mission was to explore a new sector of space, one that had never been visited by any species. She stood on the bridge and thought about all the people who had made this moment possible. "Set course for the unknown," she said. "Let's see what's out there." In her quiet laboratory, Soo Kim returned to her work. The collapse engine had proven that impossible things were possible. Now she wanted to know what else could be achieved. Her latest project was a theory about traveling between dimensions. Most scientists called it fantasy. Sue just smiled and kept working, and in a small garden outside the home that had once belonged to Captain June Park, Dr. Hana Lee planted a tree. It was a cherry tree, the kind that bloomed every spring in the land of their ancestors. She planted it in memory of her friend, so that something beautiful would grow from his sacrifice. Ambassador Tae Kang retired from public life. He spent his remaining years writing a history of humanity's journey to the stars. He wanted future generations to understand what their ancestors had accomplished and what it had cost. The book ended with words that would be quoted for centuries to come. "We came to the stars as strangers. We were met with contempt and dismissed as children. But when darkness threatened all life, we did not turn away. We stood and fought, not for glory or power, but because it was right. We warned them. They did not listen. And still, we came to save them. Let those who come after us remember, courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act despite it. We chose to act. And the galaxy was forever changed." The book was translated into 1,000 languages and read on 1,000 worlds. The species who had once mocked humanity now taught their children about the brave humans who had saved them all. And somewhere, in the vast emptiness of space, the hollow remained imprisoned in its cage of folded dimensions. It would stay there forever, guarded by stations crewed by volunteers from every species, a reminder of what could happen when the galaxy forgot to listen. But that was a worry for another day. For now, humanity looked to the future. There were stars to explore, discoveries to make, and new friends to meet. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and humanity was just getting started.